Hi, this is 365801 and this is the mid-year freak out tag. So it's that time of year again when everyone starts evaluating how much they've read, how much they plan to read, in what way they were going to read, their reading goals for the year, all of that. And I did do one of these videos last year, I'll put a link to it. And I also did best books of in preparation because when I started doing it last year, 2022, I realised I had no idea what my favourite book of the year was so far because there were just too many of them. You might have noticed I didn't do that this year. So that means the first question is going to be a lot easier. This year is very different from last year. Um, it's not quite as successful in some ways, but I suppose the only way to really evaluate is to get into it. First of all, I did want to say I did set a reading goal that was slightly more than last year. I had set 150 last year and I very quickly got that. And I had read about 200 by the time that I got to the Manga fictional last year. And it's roughly the same again this year. I did set a target of 200 this year. And by the time this video goes out, I will have got my 200. I already know that. I'm like 190, like 8, 99, something like that. And that's not including other things that I haven't actually recorded on Goodreads because either I can't record them because they haven't actually put them down, or they're not a book, they're web novels or web comics and things like that. So yeah, I've definitely read plenty. I've also DNF'd a lot. I think I've DNF'd between 12 and 15. I'm not entirely sure because there's some hanging in the balance at the moment of I have started, do I actually want to finish? And so there's quite a lot of DNFs so far this year, which is good. I don't want to keep on reading things I don't want to read, and so I have DNF. So that's supposedly a positive, but it does mean I have started a lot of things that I've not enjoyed, which means I've wasted some time instead of reading fabulous 5 stars all the time. You've got to take some DNFs as well. The other thing is that of this 200 that I've read so far this year, probably around 40, between 45 maybe, 44, 49, something like that, are rereads. I have reread a lot. That's almost 25% of all of the books that I've read are actually rereads. So yeah, it's not been a great year so far in terms of my reading. And I'm a little bit disappointed about that. But there's not really much else I can do but go through some of these questions. Question number 1 is the best book of the year so far, and that's pretty easy for me. I did look at question number 2, so I have 2 choices, and I've decided to use one for one question and one for the next question. So the answer is actually a book that I was recommended for my 12 and 12 for 2023 by Vinny Reads on Instagram, and it was a book I had never heard of before. I didn't actually recognize the author, didn't know anything about it, was completely caught off guard when I thought, fine, who is this Sarah Rees Brennan? Not knowing that I had 2 of her books on my bookshelf that I'd already written down as being part of my 23 and 23 that I might want to try and see if I can read this year as a video concept, but also just because they're in my house and I want to read them. So yeah, I did not know Sarah Rees Brennan, and that I had some of her books already. So In Other Lands is the book. This is one that kind of came out of nowhere. Like I said, I don't really know Vinny very much, but I do follow on Instagram because there's always gorgeous bookish content. And I just want to say thank you so much because this is by far the best book I've read so far this year, and it's probably going to be up there. I know it's not for everyone, and I think a lot of people have it pitched to them as, oh, if you like Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, then you're going to love this. And I concur, that is very accurate. But if you go in expecting something and then it's not exactly what you get, then you can sometimes be disappointed. Whereas I went in with no expectations. There was no hype for this book. I missed all of that back in, what was it, 2017 when it came out. Totally passed me by, had no idea what this book was going to be about. Didn't even know if I could get a copy. I went over onto Amazon just to see how much it would cost, and they had the full first chapter instead of the synopsis. I was like, well, I don't even know what this book's going to be about. So I started reading this first chapter, and very quickly I'd finished it, and I had cackled, laugh out loud, and also been kind of emotionally touched in the space of this one first chapter. And it was like £2 from Kindle, and I was like, all right, okay. And when I tell you, I sat there and I read this book in one sitting. And this book is like, what is it, like 500 pages long? It's a really long book, and I I just absolutely loved it. I loved it from start to finish. It was just amazing. 496 pages, there you go. And when I say I read it in one sitting, I just lay in bed and sat there reading it. And I think I passed out at one point. I didn't fall asleep. I just passed out from reading. And then when I kind of came to, I was like, oh well, I'll just carry on reading. That was it. I just read it in one big sitting. And I loved it, and it was so good. I'm so grateful that I had something that was so amazing. It's kind of just follows Elliot as he goes from the world that we live in to another world, and goes to a school and meets people. And he is the disaster bisexual that I need to read more of, and just so happened that Sarah Rees Brennan, after having written this in 2017, hadn't given the world anything more, but she just so happened in January to release a two-part extra story. So if you haven't read that yet, go and read it. It's so good. It was Elliot just when he's a bit older, and so good. Every time he calls him loser, I just go wee. So yeah, 100% recommend. This was a great book. So good, so good. So second question is the best sequel, and I'm gonna go with Heated Rivalry, but also technically also The Long Game. Now, this is a big contender for the best book of the year as well, but I decided to put this in the best sequel because technically it is. The Game Changers series by Rachel Reed is one that's published by Carina Press, and I don't know if they have a problem with putting out, if they don't have a lot of money. They're part of Harlequin, so you'd think they would be, but for some strange reason, they never seem to have a huge stock of availability of their queer titles. Like, you can get their non-queer titles, but I don't know how much they put out. And it always seems to be like these massive big ones that Carina Press have the rights to are not available physically. It's almost all digital. And they did a reprinting of Heated Rivalry, so I was able to get a copy. But my order for The Long Game has been cancelled, so I don't have a copy of it and I can't find it anywhere. And this was only released last year. What are you playing at, Carina Press? I'm so annoyed. So this is a story of ice hockey, Bale Bill romance. It's very famous. I am late to the party, I know. Um, but it was always on my to read list, and I'd seen the hype and I wasn't really sure if it was worth the hype. The first book was okay, but the second book is definitely where it's at. I'm a basic bitch. As a male romance fan, I'm a basic bitch. I am just liking what everyone else is liking, and Heated Rivalry, and I liked Role Model as well. That was a good one. And then, of course, The Long Game. It follows Ilya and Shane as rivals from their um, youth days before they were drafted into the NHL, and then follows them throughout when they have a sort of illicit relationship at the same time as being lauded as the biggest rivals in the NHL. And it is amazing, and I loved it as well. So yeah, that's the two, and I kind of class Heated Rivalry and The Long Game together because when it comes to a sequel. I think a lot of people were worried because they just felt that Shane and Ilya were just beloved, so they were a bit worried or concerned about having what happens next as a sequel, whether or not it was going to be good. But I absolutely loved them. I loved them both, and amazing. When it comes to ice hockey male romance, that is up there, and I can see why it has the crown. Now, the next question is new releases that you have not yet read but want to. And I think probably the other world's books depend on the bean counter has just had a volume 3 released. I own volume 2, but I don't have volume 1 yet, so I haven't read them, and that's, I think, the big title in terms of BL manga that I'm most interested in. It's an isekai, but it's a BL isekai, and they're kind of having a sort of renaissance, because they were kind of left by the wayside for a while, and I think we're having a lot more BL isekais, whereas there's loads of isekais that people can read, but the BL side of it has been sort of um, ignored in terms of the English publishing. So that's interesting. In terms of male romance or any kind of literary fiction, I have a few titles um, through NetGalley that are big and have come out, and I plan to read anyway. So I have copies of them, but I haven't read yet. TJ Klune's release, The Lives of Puppets. I also have a Cat Sebastian. The big one for me is probably The Lives of Country Gentlemen. I think that's KJ Charles. That's another one. So there's a few new titles from authors that I love that I do want to read. So yeah, it's the usual suspects: Cat Sebastian, KJ Charles. Alexis Hall now as well, Mortal Follies. That's just come out. So yeah, the usual suspects for me that when I get them, I will read them. Question 5 is anticipated releases for the rest of 2023. There's one that's going around, everyone's really excited about. Gwen and Art Are Not in Love. I did request an ARC copy, did not get it. Never mind, I will wait till it comes out. It doesn't come out in the UK for quite a while, I don't think. Or is it in America? It's already come out? I don't know. The UK and US release dates are different. So, obviously, Freya Marsk's Power Unbound. I am checking NetGalley. I'm checking NetGalley, actively checking to see if it's been up. It's been put up in the US NetGalley, but not in the UK one. And last year I got an ebook and then the audiobook version. And the year before that, I didn't get the ebook, but I did get the audiobook version. And I do think I prefer listening to the audiobook, but I also like reading along at the same time. I own them now, physical copies. So yeah, I'm looking for the third book and the completion of this trilogy, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. The other one is 10 Things That Never Happened. That's Alexis Hall's London Calling series, or maybe it's the spin-off. I did read a little like a snippet of it, and it seems like a fun, interesting one. I'm gonna enjoy it. It's the same as Boyfriend Material, Husband Material. It's of that world, so I'll probably enjoy that one too. So the next question is the biggest disappointment so far. One of them is a video that I just made of Yana Deco's No Touching at All, and I just did not like the translation. And I just wasn't feeling it, and I was wondering why. And then literally like a couple of days later, June Manga have announced that they are reprinting it with a new localization. The biggest disappointment was the fact that this was originally translated by Jocelyn Allen. She's my queen. I love her. And she always does amazing translation work. And I would read everything. I would read anything she translated. But this was just so lackluster and confusing, and it just didn't hit. So I'm wondering if there was issues with it in terms of editing and other things, because I don't think that just one person needs to be held accountable for a book getting put out in a way that does not meet certain standards, and I don't think it is just on one person. And the person at the top really should be held responsible. And I guess that's what they're doing, which is great. Which also reminded me of a book that I read at the beginning of the year, which was a reread for me, but it was the new version, or the the new publication of the second book in the With or Without series, with caution, and they had edited it to remove all of the sort of dom sub aspect to the relationship, which I can understand why. Like, it was shocking when I read it the first time, because there was a character who was in denial of his sexuality due to an absolutely horrific traumatic experience when he was younger, and was homophobic because of it, realizing that he had not only sexual feelings towards this man, but that he was submissive to him, and actually wanted to be submissive to him, and the other man was very domineering in that way, and it was like, oh, I don't know if this is healthy. In fact, I know it's not healthy, but I remember reading it back in the day thinking, oh, this is not healthy, but also, give me more. And it had been re-released in a new version, and all of that was removed. And I was reading it going, hold on, what? And I really did feel like I was being gaslit. And also, it just didn't hit right. It didn't give me the dopamine hit. I also have one small disappointment, and that is because my ship didn't sail in a book series. Now, I'm reading some things for 12 and 12 that people have recommended to me, and Jen from Jen Does the Thing has recommended a few things to me, and one of the things she's recommended to me is a trilogy, and I read the first two books, and I have not read the third one because I suspect that something is going to happen, and I am not happy about it. I don't want to see a character that I love or appreciate or even have mild affection for die on the page, and I suspect that is what's going to happen, and I'm not happy about it. So also because that was one of the people I was like, oh right, okay, so this is a character, I'm shipping him with him, great. And then I found out halfway through that first book, no, you have to ship the main character with this other character. And I was like, hold on, what? So my ship is sunk. And more so, my character is going to be killed off, and I'm not happy about it. So yeah, there's been quite a few disappointments. Not just that it's kind of a lackluster year and all of these DNFs, but there's also been disappointments in the reading as well. So the next question is biggest surprise, and honestly, I don't think I have any surprises. I've kind of gone in with low expectations, and sometimes those low expectations were still not met. So, so they're not really any massive surprises. I mean, it's not a surprise that I liked an ice hockey male romance. The biggest surprise is probably In Other Lands, because I just didn't know anything about it. In terms of a non-BL, non-male romance book that was a surprise, that I haven't reviewed at all on the channel, and that is Stuart Turton's The Devil in the Dark Water. That was a surprise because there's a twist, and the twist is that the person that I would obviously, if you read the story, if you have read the story, I'd love to hear other people's opinions, but if you've read the story, there is a character that I personally, it's like it's been designed for me to love. He kind of feels gay. So obviously I'm gonna have him as my favorite character. He's also intelligent and a bit snarky, and I'm like, yes, yes to all of that. He seems shorter and blonde, and I'm like, yes, yes to all of that. So yeah, he was the character. I was like, great. I don't want to give away the ending, but something happened at the end, and I was like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. In fact, I almost threw this book across the room with about, I don't know, I don't even think it was 50 pages. I think it was like 30 or 20 pages before the end. I was like, oh no, this is going the wrong way, and then it just kept getting worse and more things kept happening at the end, because I was like, how are they going to wrap this up? I've been reading this book for a 10, 80, it's been 84 years. It's the longest book. It's ridiculous. And I was like, how is this story going to end? And it's just boom, info dump supposition at the end. And I hated it. But at the same time, I could not stop thinking about it for weeks. For weeks. And it was supposed to be part of a video. I can tell you now, it was going to be like a Meg with Books reading. So I watch Meg with Books. So hey, if she's watching, I like watching her videos, and I always like watching and seeing what she's got on her bookshelves. And so if I come across one of the books in the thrift shop for 50p or £1, I'll pick it up, and then I can maybe read it and see if it's any good. And if I don't like it, I take it back to the charity shop. So March was supposed to be a mystery month, so you could read mysteries as part of the Mystery Madness readathon that Bazaar had promoted, and I was going to read lots of mysteries. So I did, or at least I started some. I was going to read some BL and I was going to read some prose, and one of them was The Devil in the Dark Water, which was like a 5-star read that Meg had done, and I had a copy and I thought I'll give it a whirl. And it was a surprise in many ways. It was really long. But I'm still not over that twist at the end. I'm not over the whole ending. If you've read it, I would love to have a chat with you and find out your opinion on it. It was certainly a surprise. So the next one is fave new author, and I'm just gonna go with a quick one, and I'll be like Rachel Reid, because she has got a new one coming out. I probably should have put that as well. One that's coming out later on the year. And it's got a different kind of cover, and it's not part of her Game Changers series, but it is also ice hockey, male romance, so I'll probably be looking to pick that up or getting a copy on NetGalley if I can as well. So yeah, I would definitely like to read more from Rachel Reid. So the next question is one that I'm not really sure if I need to answer, and that is favourite new crush. And I don't think I have one, because I don't generally tend to have crushes on any fictional characters, except I have been reading a lot of webcomics, and there's very attractive men in the webcomics that I'm reading. Or I suppose I just did mention, what's his name? Samuel Pipps from The Devil in the Dark Water. That's a guess, I guess. But like I said, I like gay characters, so they're not really fictional crushes for me. The next question is favourite new character, and it'll be either Ilya from Heated Rivalry or Elliot from In Other Lands. Those two are going to duke it out to the end of the year. Those two books will duke it out to the end of the year to see. I don't know if there'll be another one that comes along. I'm hoping that there will be more amazing 5-star reads. I have a whole slew of things that I want to read, so hopefully I'll get some contenders, but so far it's just those two. So the next question is a book that made you cry, and there are not a huge number. I cried in Other Lands, I cried reading that. There is a particular scene with Serene and Elliot, and I sobbed like a child. And it was so bad, but it was so good. And I cried reading Ilya's story. I cried. I don't know if it was Heated Rivalry or if it was The Long Game. Probably both. But there was another one that I read in January. This was Catban Books had recommended the Elite trilogy by Brooke Blaine and Ella Frank, and Danger Zone had, I could have put that in the surprises as well actually, had one of the best cliffhanger endings I've ever read. Like, it was literally the best. I was like, what? And then it finished. And these are really short books. They're like around 200 pages. So I don't really class the Elite trilogy as 3 separate books. You really need to read all 3 of them together, and just look at it as like a long male romance story rather than three books. Because you need to read the second book almost as soon as the first book is finished, because I'm like, what? But there was moments in that one that were very emotional, and I kind of cried and teared up on that one as well. I think I read When the Cat Faces East, and there was a couple of moments in that that were quite emotional, that I didn't expect to tear up and feel emotional about. But then, of course, it's by the same author or mangaka as Mushishi, and Mushishi just gets me, like, wow. So When a Cat Faces West, it's only, I think, just the 3 volumes, but um, yeah, that last volume, oof, there was a couple of moments I'm just like, oh my god, this is heavier than I thought. But other than that, there were not. Other than tears of frustration and tears of anger, like I've said, there's not been many. So I don't think I have a huge number that I'm particularly look back on and go, oh, that's what made me cry. So just a few. Ones that made me happy, obviously the 2 main ones that I've mentioned already, but quite a few of the manga, I would say, made me happy. Some are on Futekia, which is now Manga Planet. That did not make me happy, but still. um, Obviously, My Love Mix-Up, some of the new volumes. Blue Sky Complex, really enjoyed reading that. I also read a lot of Honto Yaju, um, the manga that just keeps on going forever and ever. In terms of new ones, there was a few Tokyo Pop titles that I really enjoyed. They made me happy just to be reading them. Um, yeah, and a lot of the rereads make me happy, because they were needed for comfort. So yeah, the manga I think was the happy place for me to go to this year so far. And the next question is the most beautiful book I have been gifted or purchased. And there's probably two. One would be I Hear the Sunspot Four Seasons, because it's very beautiful. The cover art is lovely. But the other one is probably Entangled with You, that I've just recently read. And that's got lovely nature imagery inside and outside. It's very nice. I like the art style inside just as much as I like the lush natural green of the outside. It's very, very pretty. So yeah, those are the two. So on to the last question. Hopefully this isn't a too long video. This is, what do I need to read by the end of the year? So that's not including things that I've mentioned already that I plan to read or that I want to read. These are things that are like on my TBR right now. Now, the first and foremost, my plan is to read as much as possible everything that I'm purchasing this year. Last year I did really, really well, and I managed to read a majority of the books that I purchased. And so whether it's published this year or not doesn't make any difference. It's whatever I'm bringing into the collection, I need to read. And then I also need to read more of my own collection so that I have a net negative. My whole point is I don't want to have more unread books on my TBR, physical TBR, that I had at the start of the year. I want to have a deficit. I want to be able to be like, yes, I have read more and I read my collection. So that's the whole point. I'd love to be able to say I read every book in my collection, but I have way too much in my collection. But I do want to prioritize the books that I'm buying and bringing in, and also the books that I already own, rather than just letting them sit here in my wonderful drawers, my wonderful collection, just not being read. So yeah, that's my main goal. The other thing is to read the things that I have requested on NetGalley. I have a list, and it's a pretty big list. It's a pretty good list. I've got the Cat Sebastian title, We Could Be So Good. I've got Raven Song by TJ Klune. I Wish You All the Best, Mason Deaver. Fake Dates and Mooncakes by Cher Lee. Dragonfall, L.R. Lamb. I'm halfway through Fool Me Once by Ariana Nash, and I kind of just left it go by the wayside. That's almost going to be a DNF, and I'm kind of disappointed because Ariana Nash was like a big, oh, can't wait to read that one. And so it's kind of disappointing when it doesn't quite hit. But the thing is, I was enjoying it for what it was. It just felt really long. So I might go back and try and finish that one. I have In the Lives of Puppets, obviously, TJ Klune as well. And I also have the Sunbearer Trials. I got a copy of that by Aidan Thomas. I also have some books on my shelves, my 23 and 23, my 12 and 12. So I have a lot of things that I need to read to make myself feel better. But then I'm absolutely 100% being distracted by all of the webcomics. The webcomics have got me in a chokehold, guys. And there's no way to really track them. You've either read them in their entirety, you're in the process of reading them, or they don't have any kind of way of tracking them on Goodreads. So if anyone has found a good way of tracking their webcomics and their reading of webcomics so they know where they are, rather than having to go to all of the different I want them all in one place. I don't want to be like, oh, on this app I'm here, and oh, I forgot about this one, and oh, I need to get this fortune cookie, and oh, these coins, and this one's points, and all of that. It's just like, I'm old, guys. I'm old. It's like having all of these different subscription services. I'm old. I just want to have one place where it's all the. I don't have to think about it. So yeah, I also have a few non-fiction titles on NetGalley that I've had for a while, and I'm making my way through them, but it's slow progress because it is non-fiction and it doesn't give me that dopamine hit that fiction does. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things for me to read. So I could say don't bother giving me any recommendations, but give me some recommendations. I always love a good recommendation. I'm actually keeping a track of recommendations as well. So if people say, oh, you should read this, or I see something, I'm screenshotting it. I have a huge folder on my phone now of just screenshots of books or webcomics that I'm like, oh, that looks great. Take a wee shot. So yeah, keeping track of those things. So yeah, that is everything. Way too many things. And this is probably longer than I planned it to be, but never mind. So this is the mid-year freakout tag. If you have not done this before, or if you'd like to do it this year, consider yourself tagged by me. And also make sure you just at me, and then I can watch yours as well. I love seeing other people's reading for the year, and checking up on if they're, oh, is that a good pick? Oh, that sounds nice. Oh, right, put that on my list. Even though I've got plenty on my list already, I can always add another one. So yeah, if you're planning on doing this, just let me know, and I will be keeping an eye out for other people's as well. Thanks for watching this. Take care, everyone. Like, subscribe, share, all those good things help out. I also have a Patreon, links in the description. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.